Community members, welcome to the Community Hotline, presented by 88 Real Estate Media for the community, by the community. And today we have community member Jason joining us today. Why don't you introduce yourself, good sir?
Hi, Bob. Thanks for having me. My name is Jason Green, and I'm a realtor here in South Orange County. I grew up in Oklahoma and spent the early part of my life there. After college, I moved out here. Wanted to trade the pastures for the beaches and the sun, and I've been out here ever since, and I'm loving it.
Got it. Love it. Love it. Love it. How many years have you been in Southern California now?
So 2002, November 2002, so that would make it going on 18.
Okay. Do you regret your decision at all?
No.
Was there?
There are things that I miss about Oklahoma, but not enough to make me move back.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Was your mom sad that you were, leaving the nest?
Well, I think she only in the last couple of years has stopped trying to find ways to get me to move back.
Just in the last couple of years. So for the first 10, she was like, come back, come back, come back.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. A mother's persistence. You can never go wrong with that.
Yeah.
Let's get into our first topic of the day, which is money. Tell us, what is money? Why isn't it taught in school? And how do you make it?
Well, I think that you bring up an important point right off the bat, that it's not taught in school. And, when you get into the university level, you can take things like economics, and you can even take personal finance, but it's not really what you need to really survive in life every day. And money really is it's a couple of things, right? It's a form of exchange, right? So I have $1, you have a candy bar. I want your candy bar, you want my dollar, right? That's the very basic thing of money. The physical bill really has no value. I mean, it's just paper, but it's the trust that we put in the money as a value of exchange. That's just basic level. To me, what money really is, and it's changed over the years. So when I was young, to me, I thought money was going to be like a scorecard, right? How much can I make, right? What kind of toys can I buy? And, how can I accumulate? But over time, what I've realized is that money really is about opportunity. And I've been, I grew up, like I said, I grew up in small town Oklahoma. My parents were not wealthy. We didn't have a lot. We had enough, but not a lot. And I look back and I think my son now, he's 13 and we live in Irvine, and this is the Orange County is a very nice area and much nicer than where I grew up. And I see all the things that he has at his disposal and all the things that he has that he could take advantage of. He's big into sports. He's very athletic, and being on the rock climbing, competitive rock climbing team. He did that for a couple of years, and he loved it. I didn't even know rock climbing existed really, growing up. And he's big into football, and he wants to be a quarterback. And the opportunities that we have to go to camps, and the level of coaches that we have in this area, it's just it blows me away. And but if I'm not making money, I can't give him that opportunity. Right. So I think there's the opportunity for ourselves, right, to not just provide for our family, but to provide opportunities they might not otherwise have. Even just taking a trip, to Europe. You can approach that in different ways, right? It's just purely fun and relaxing, or you can really try to get a little bit more out of it. And what is the culture really like? In whether it's France or Italy or Spain or Portugal, and really kind of educating yourself that way. Money just presents so many opportunities when you have it, and so I think teaching that in schools, how to manage it properly, how to we talk about money, but I think debt kind of goes in there with it, because I guess debt's basically negative money. Um, and how do you manage that? And is it a good thing? And it can be. It's hard to buy a house without taking out a mortgage. But do we really need to put a TV on a credit card? These are the things that we really should touch on, and not just touch on. We should really teach in school. And I didn't. Like I said, my parents, they were barely high school educated, and so they didn't know what to teach me as far as things like that. And so I don't fault them for that. And I think we take it for granted that it's just, we just kind of learn about it through experience. And experience is a good teacher, but it can be a harsh teacher too. So if you learn that debt lesson,
Yeah.
it might be painful, and it might take you a while to recover.
When did you learn that debt lesson? Do you have a personal experience that you would like to share?
Yeah, early on, I bought my first computer right right after I graduated high school, and I went down to the bank, my local bank, and they gave me a loan for it, and I paid it off in like whatever it was, 7 months or 9 months, and after that, I received all kinds of credit card offers, one after the other, and so okay, great, let's take them. I can afford a $20 a month credit card payment, no problem. But the more you spend, the higher that payment goes. And right after high school, I'm in college, and I don't necessarily have a steady income, and it's certainly not huge. So yeah, I got myself into a little bit of credit card debt, credit card trouble, while I was in college, and had to work my way out of that. And so it was a harsh teacher, and I'm glad I learned the lesson, early on.
Do you think that's a trap that society puts you in? Because you're not the first person that has told me that about as soon as someone turned 18, they just got like flooded with credit card offers. You know, Apple credit cards, Victoria's Secret credit cards, American Eagle credit cards, like you name it. They were getting offers for it.
Yeah, and I think that the bad thing is these credit card companies are not necessarily looking at your disposable income. They're simply looking at your credit score. Are you credit worthy? And if they are, especially when you're young, because you build brand loyalty that way, right? I mean, you see all the brands on campus, hosting this or sponsoring that, and they know that you're a consumer, and they want to build that brand loyalty, and credit cards are no different. And so, XYZ Bank wants you as a customer, and they want you for life. So let's get them hooked early. And it should there be legislation, saying that you can't offer a credit card, to someone under a certain age, maybe. But I think it goes. I prefer to have our solutions be local. So like for me, my solution for that for my son is going to be me and my wife teaching him, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you're going to get this. It's coming, so be ready for it. And when you see it, understand that you're not ready for it, and you just tear it up, throw away, shred it, preferably. And so I would prefer we have solutions like that, so where you have the community that's involved in educating the younger crowd about how to handle these things safely. I tend to be a smaller government type of person, so.
I love it. I love that. That's a great tip. Where would you say, do you have like a defining moment in your life where your attitude towards money kind of changed? Like a specific example?
I don't know that I have a single moment. And it happened over time, and I think I grew up in that um, 80s, 90s. Kind of 80s, we had a booming economy, and I was young, and I saw, I probably shouldn't have, but I saw the movie Wall Street. I was probably younger than I should have been, but to see it. But just the what's the word I'm looking for? The flash, maybe. I don't know, the excitement these guys, they're making money, and they're, and there's the ticker tapes are going on, and they're shouting and at the across the room, and trading, and I was like, I got caught up in that, right? And so that I think was more, and that's, I hate to say that, but that made a bigger impression on me about money than anything else. And again, I look back on that experience for me, and I want to make sure that media doesn't have a bigger impact on my son than I do. And so and it's so easy though. It's so easy to, because I can somewhat control what we watch in the house, but when he goes to a friend's house, or when he goes off, then he's on his own. So I have to be sure that I'm teaching those lessons at home, and more than anything, the best way for me to teach it is to do it and just let him see it, as opposed to me sitting down and saying, I'm going to talk to you about this. He's probably going to tune out, right? If I can just live it, then he'll see it and he'll understand it, and he's more likely to emulate it.
I love that. I love that. So kind of transitioning then from money to education then, what, how do you think about the current education system, that's going on in America right now? I mean, I guess what was your education like? Let's start there. Who were you in high school?
Yeah, who was I in high school? I was the kid who, I didn't have to study early on, and so by the time I got into my later grades, I had the habit of not studying, which caught up to me. So I really had to pour it on my senior year in order to get good grades. But again, small town. I think I had 21 people in my graduating class. Okay?
What?
21. 4 of them were girls. So I either got a prom day early or I had to go out of town. So, but yeah, I mean, it's completely different than what you've got now. Obviously, we didn't have the online learning, right? We did have, though, satellite. We watched a satellite feed from Oklahoma State University, and we learned calculus 3 days a week from the satellite feed. And then we had a teacher the other 2 days in class that was, trying to teach us. And so that was like cutting edge back then, watching a satellite feed. And but I think there's a couple things that come to mind when we talk about education and where it is. Obviously, there's a lot of technology that's coming into play, especially right now. Right, we're just kind of coming out of the shelter in place. For the most part, it's still on, and my son hasn't been in the classroom since early March. But he's working on a project right now with a friend of his for a class, and they're all doing it, online and over the phone. So I think I would go back to my comments with the solution. I would rather have a more local solution. I would love to see a radical change in our education system, one where it's more parents that are maybe, almost like school pods, as opposed to going to a big building with, hundreds of students. Maybe you have small, quote unquote campuses, and maybe there's 10 or 20 students, and that's like your class. And you can get together with bigger groups for other activities. But I think that if we have parents who are more involved with education, our students do so much better. And my wife is a teacher, and I see it all the time. She has those parents who, their thought is, here's my child, educate them. And, that's her job and not theirs. And I think that's it. It can't be that way, right? I mean, it's got to be, parents have to be involved. They have to be. And I'm not saying, be at the PTA every week or, but they have to be at home, at least asking, what are you learning? Let's review your homework. I know that you've done it and you've got a good grade. I want to see what's going on. I'm learning algebra again, right? Because my son's learning it. Right. So I want to make sure that I know it well enough to teach him. And so, I would love to see, kind of a radical shift in how we approach education.
I love it. What would you say? I guess where would you like to see? I know you mentioned the pods, but in a perfect world, in the future of education, where if you were the principal and What are three things you want to lay down?
Wow. I think giving the teachers the freedom to teach, right? I think, we have legislation, we have no child left behind, which is, in my mind, is just brilliant marketing, right? Who's going to vote against no? Who wants to leave a child behind, right? So of course that's going to pass. But what has it actually done? Well, it set us up. It set a standard for various subjects that we now teach. We teach to that standard, and more of the teaching is going toward passing the test, right? And so, does that really teach? Let's back up for a second. What is education, right? It's part of it is learning a subject, but I think a big part of it, and a part that we miss with these new standards, is learning to think, and learning to look at things, and how do you look at things differently. I had my son I was helping him with a math problem the other day, and it was a triangle within a triangle. And if you can picture it, you'll see, okay, you've got two triangles, and he was focused on the inner triangle and trying to figure out what was going on, and he couldn't figure it out. So I said, Noah, what else do you see there? And when he kind of took a step back and looked at it, he's like, oh, there's three more triangles, other than those two. And so when he saw that, it was easy, right? But if I don't know how long it would have taken him to see it had I not told him, take a step back. What do you see? And so that's for me, that's what 30, 40 years of experience that before I came to that point. I wasn't doing that in high school necessarily. And so, but if we can teach them young, right, to take a step back, what is it that you see? What do you, then you go deeper with your education. And, I see a map, there's a couple of rivers. Okay, fine. Well, what else do you see? And pushing them and challenging them to do these things, and to do them at their own pace. Because everybody learns differently. I remember, because I spent plenty of time in corporate America.
Right.
And I worked directly for the VP of Treasury, and he worked for the CFO. I was in meetings with those guys all the time. And what I learned is, if I have a report, I better bring two versions. One is all graphs for my VP of Treasury. One is all numbers for my CFO, because that's how they took data in. And so, and kids they're no different, right? They learn differently. They see things differently. So rather than, and that's, Common Core gets a bad rap. And I've seen videos where, somebody's doing a Common Core math problem and it's taking forever, and somebody will, they'll do the math problem real quick, and then they'll go brew a cup of coffee, or they'll make a sandwich, and the Common Core explanation is still going on. The explanation is not meant to, this is how you solve the problem. It's to get you to think about what this problem is. And if you can see what this problem is, then it makes doing that problem easier. And so, it's like I said, not everybody learns the same way. And so we have to be open to setting kids up to succeed at their pace and in their way.
Right. I love it. I love everything you said. Letting teachers be able to teach. Not everything is, at this, like, people need to go on their own pace, right? Everyone learns differently. Speaking of this, then, what would you say your highest ambition is in life?
Oh, wow. My highest ambition, I don't know right now. It's kind of changed over time. I mean, like I said before, it was just accumulate as much money as possible. But it's changed over time. And I think one of them right now would be to be successful enough in my business that I could give my wife the option that if she didn't want to go in to teach, she didn't have to. I know that she wouldn't just sit around doing nothing all day. That's just not who she is. But she's, like I said, she's an educator as well. She's a teacher as well. And I know that she would want to do something with, whether it's at a private school, she could, maybe take a cut in salary, and it wouldn't matter because she's doing what she loves in a way that she loves. So that would be a big one. I think another one, really, my son is 13. We only have a few more years left before he's on his own. And so just trying to give him as many opportunities as possible to succeed, whether it's academically or athletically. And then, so those are the two, like, probably closest to me. And then if we want to talk about like even bigger, man, I don't know. I mean, there's so many things to fix in the world, right? Where do you start? So, but I think if I could find a way to, because my wife has talked about, starting, what would be awesome to start her own school. If I could find a way to fund that and help her to realize that dream, that would be another big one.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I mean, you talk a lot about your wife and kids. It seems like you're very big on family. How did you and your wife meet?
We met online. It was funny because this was back in the early 2000s, and so she tells me that she was online. She was on the verge of deleting her profile because she had a couple of like bad experiences, and so I interrupted her with a message, and I was just chatting with her, and so she says she wanted to either like scare me off, or maybe this would be somebody worth talking to. So she started asking me like these questions, like, well, how do you feel about marriage, and how do you feel about kids, and how do you feel, like, okay, I haven't even met you yet, and you're asking me about marriage. So and so I gave her some honest answers, and so she's like, oh, okay, those answers aren't bad, so I guess you can go give me a call. So that was.
I love it. I love it. What kind of dating advice would you give your son? As he enters, I mean, he's a teenager now, so I'm sure it's usually that range when kids like kind of they lose their innocence, but are more into girls and like are more into that kind of things. What kind of advice?
We've had these conversations, and I love the way Ben Shapiro puts it. Is dating is the act of finding a spouse. And so if you're not ready to get married, why are you dating? And I know that for most people, especially young people, because I was a young people at one point, that's like, what are you talking about? I want to date. I want to go out and have fun. But really it is. I mean, from our background and our faith, dating really is about, who am I going to find that I can spend the rest of my life with? And so we had I don't know if I call it a scare, but I found a message from my son to this girl, or actually it was to him, saying something about I just want to be friends and whatnot, and so I'm like, wait, is he not hearing our message? And so I asked him about it, like, what's going on with this? And he's like, well, I have a friend. He's really shy. He likes this girl. So I said, fine, I will talk to her for you. And so I was like, oh, okay, because that scared me for a second, And so it was, I think he's taking the message to heart, though, and so, which is making us happy. It's tough because I think the other thing is, we live in a climate where it can be dangerous to date, and I don't want to make it sound like everybody's in danger when they're dating, but there are going to be times when maybe you do something with someone and that person regrets it, and now it's on Facebook, or maybe the police are involved. We've seen that happen a few times where a young man, his life is, there's been plenty of college cases where a young man is expelled because a consensual act is then reported as non-consensual. And so I've seen reports of kindergartners who are literally arrested because they gave a girl a kiss on the cheek. So I mean, we live in such a time that it's like really, volatile's not the right word. It's really scary, though. I'm glad I'm not dating. I'm glad I'm married, and I don't have to mess with that. But I really think if everybody did approach it as, hey, I'm dating only because I'm looking to get married, I mean, I think it would change. It would change things drastically.
I love that. I love that. All right. So kind of just, wrapping up, what are two pieces of life advice you have for the youth that are listening?
Two pieces of life advice. Let's see. I think never stop learning. And I have learned. So I have my undergraduate degree in finance, and I have an MBA from UC Irvine. And I think as great as those educations were, I think I've probably learned more practical life lessons through self-education. And so I would never discourage anyone from getting a degree continuing their formal education, but schools and institutions are only part of our education, right? We have to be willing to educate ourselves. And you're going to learn a lot of things that they don't teach you in business school. I mean, there are plenty of books out there called What They Don't Teach You in Business School. and I was listening to a book today, and Darren Harding, and the things I've heard him talk about, because I do a lot of audiobooks, I've heard before, but he says it in maybe a slightly different way. And so, okay, now it's reinforcing the things that I've heard before. And I think you can never stop learning, and you can't rely on others to educate you. You got to educate yourself. So that's one piece of advice. The other is, hard work. Success doesn't come easily. There's a lot of people there. So let's take real estate, for instance, right?
Yeah.
There's a few there's a few shows out there that make being a realtor look easy, right? You wake up at 9, you roll into the office, you get a phone call from a client, they like this house, you put in an offer, you go back forth a couple times, great, we got a deal, 4.5 million. Yeah, I wish my days were like that, right? That would be awesome, but they're not. They're not. Flipping a house, right? That's a hard thing to do. You got to find that property, and then you got to convince the person who owns it to sell it to you. And then, how do you know how much it's going to cost? And it can be done, but it's not quite as easy as the 30-minute show makes it look. So be prepared. If you really want to be successful, be prepared to grind. And that means getting up every day, doing the things that you need to do. And it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or working in a corporate office. You gotta be prepared to do the things you need to do, and then some, and do it consistently. I think for me, that success would look like I said, my wife doesn't have to work. My son has all the opportunities he needs. I'm giving back 25, 35, 50% of my income because I don't need it, but I'm making it. And right. So I can give freely. And then, then the question becomes, well, if you have all the money you need and you don't need to work, then what do you do? Well, I'm not the kind of guy who can sit on the beach for 7 days, let alone the rest of my life. So I'm going to have projects. I'm going to find something that I'm passionate about that I can do. And most likely that's going to be some way to give back to the community. Maybe I'm coaching youth football, or maybe I'm, helping out in the classroom. Maybe if I can convince somebody to put together a program that says, hey, I'm going to go into junior highs and high schools and teach about money just, maybe once a week or something like that. So it's, for me, it would never be, I've achieved everything I want to have achieved. You can find me on the beach. I'll do that occasionally just to decompress. That's fun. But I think I get so much more out of working and helping other people that I wouldn't want to give that up.
I love it. Okay. And then just kind of to wrap it up, you've been asking us, you've been sharing so much valuable information. I'd like to pose one question for you on how the community can help you. And I think you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier, but feel free to change it. But the question is, if you had $100 million problem that the community could solve for you, what would that be?
Yeah, there are a lot of things that we need to fix. I mean, you've got a homeless problem, and there's we don't have the infrastructure that we used to have to deal with mental illness. But I don't really have a lot of expertise in that. I'd love to be able to just write that check and say, here, experts, let's fix that problem. But if I would probably, for me, it would be more education. And I think, because I really, I'm going to go with the credit card and the brand name, the strategies, and get them while they're young, and teach them right when they're young, and then they'll be right for the rest of their lives, hopefully.
Got it. I love it. So basically, the problem is to be able to teach the kids at a mass level, about finances and on the level. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for watching. Before I forget, 88 Real Estate Media is looking for members to join the oversight committee to build the best mindfulness school in Southern California. Shoot us a message if you want to learn more. Any last words, Jason? How can people find you? Any plugs?
People can find me on Instagram at The Real Jason Green. I'm on Facebook as well, Jason K Green. And I appreciate what you're doing. I really do. I mean, I've heard your backstory, and I love that somebody's out there not just talking about we should do this, but actually taking action. And so that's, talk is great, action is much better. So thank you.
Of course. All right. Let people know what your number is, in case they want to sell a house.
Yeah, you can reach me at 949-648-2323.
One more time.
Love to help you.
One more time for that.
949. Yeah, 949-648-2323.
Got it. Thank you very